adult child of an alcoholic. My name is Dr. Lester Hartman. I'm a pediatrician at Westwood Mansfield Pediatrics, and anything discussed here is for our patients. And if you're from another practice, please talk to your own practice about their feelings and guidelines. I am an adult child of an alcoholic. My mother passed away 20 years ago. If she were alive today, I would keep her anonymity. She died sober for 20 years. But as a child, there was a lot of suffering in the house. My brilliant, loving mother, to me, was not so loving to my sister. And there were a lot of fights in the house. And believe me, the Department of Social Service would have been in our house between the two of them. I sat by my mother's bedside as she bled out from bleeding ulcers from constant drinking and taking Bufferin for rheumatoid arthritis. In those days, there were no things such as Zantac and Prilosec and Prevacid. And eventually she had over half her stomach resected. She began drinking at age 16 and never stopped for years, and struggled and struggled and struggled with it. I come from a multi-generational group of people who were alcoholics. My grandfather on my father's side suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. He was mustard gassed and shot in World War I, highly decorated, but paid the consequence of war for the rest of his life. He was an odd jobsman and a chronic chain smoker. My mother was in a house where her father was a doctor of psychology and chief of Beloit College, the head of the department there, and my grandmother was an alcoholic. My father never became an alcoholic and was the rock in our house. My mother collapsed into it starting in her 30s and well into her 50s when she started falling apart physically. I want to go through and discuss with you the risk factors, the challenges of alcoholism. The challenge in our household was the fact that in those days you only needed one income to survive, so nobody saw us falling apart financially. Families who have members that are the breadwinner, the chief breadwinner in the house, when that person falls apart, housing can be lost, cars can be repossessed, kids can lose going to schools that they were going to before. Divorce rates are very high among families where one of the parents is an alcoholic. And these are key things that happened in many households. My mother was in AA for a number of years, and I ended up going to Al-Anon for friends and family members of alcoholics. I also sought counsel from psychologists as well. I met my wife unintentionally in Al-Anon. We've had 2 kids and we're happily married. But it was not without struggles to start because of our backgrounds with our parents. So I hope that you will realize, being in the suburbs of Westwood and Mansfield, there is a lot of alcoholism in there. There are a lot of families that have bars or alcohol in their house, which is really more accessible to kids than you realize. The best thing that you can do for your kids is to get rid of the alcohol in the house. If you so choose, that's controversial to some. And also to learn to be introspective if you feel you've become addicted. The 12-step programs are wonderful programs to teach us how to be introspective of ourselves. And that's the wonderful opportunity for anyone who wants to either quit drinking or wants to deal with a loved one or friend who continues to drink. And again, my mother passed away 20 years ago, so that's why I'm talking non-anonymously now, whereas before I would talk anonymous and not name my mother at this point. So the final word for this segment on alcohol. One of my favorite heroes is Dr. Albert Schweitzer. You may not know him. He was a Nobel Peace Prize winner in the 1950s. He was a physician, did missions in Africa, theologian, organ builder, a world expert on Bach. So he's a very talented man. He said once, and this applies so much to parents, example is not just one way to affect change. It is the only way. And that's where honesty around our use of alcohol is key to setting the proper example for our kids. Thank you.